to another episode of the Movie Geek Podcast. I'm your host, George T., and this is going to be a two-parter. This Comic-Con one that I've been trying to work on for a little bit of time as we get into Comic-Con season here in the Northeast. There is several that are happening this late half of the year, and I will be going to a few of them, and I will be talking about Comic-Cons and how long I've been going to them and how many celebrities I've met along the way, and share some of these stories. So this is going to be quite lengthy, so that's why we're going to break it into two. So right off the bat, I want to say definitely hit that subscribe button if you are a new watcher to the program, or if you've been watching and you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Also like, comment, share, whatever you need to do to help out this podcast. We're getting closer to episode 100. I want to do something special, and I'm taking suggestions on that. I am thinking about going live, but I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, so right off the bat, we've got two Comic-Cons actually butting heads on the same weekend. Fan Expo Boston and Terrificon in Connecticut. And I will be going to Terrificon and not Fan Expo, and I'll explain that later on, either in this episode or in the next one, depending on how far we get into this episode. And then after that, there are two in September, Terracon up in Marlborough, and then the week after in Worcester is Silver Screams 4. That is with the Ice Nine Kills band. They are a local band. Spencer is their lead singer. They do a lot of horror movie, metalcore. I think that's what they're called. I don't remember exactly, but I've gotten a liking to them because of Ashley listening to them, and I've been to two of their concerts the last 2 years, Subscreams 2 and 3, so looking forward to going there again this year. And then Rhode Island Comic Con, always in November, and that is loaded right now. Can't wait to tell you some of the guests that are going to be there, and that will definitely be something that we'll get into later on in probably the last episode. So, obviously, I've been a movie watcher for a very long time, and worked at Blockbuster, and just, always wanted to meet celebrities, or wanted to be a part of the movie genre at some point. I've written some stuff. Don't know where to actually send any of this stuff, but who knows? Eventually maybe this podcast will really pick up steam, and who knows? Maybe one of my scripts could get sold. But the Rhode Island Comic Con is where I started going to Comic Cons. I read up on it, and it was a really small con to start. Started in 2012. My first going experience was in 2015. I always heard about Boston Comic Con, which started in 2007. It was a big con for this area, and in 2018 it turned over to Fan Expo, and I started going to Boston in 2017, because quite frankly Boston is hard to get in and out of. Like, it really was. And originally it was down in the Seaport area. They moved to the convention center, so it's a little bit easier to access it by the subway or the train, but still very hard to get in and out of Boston, as we all know here. Rhode Island is so much easier. It's right down the road in Providence. I can take I don't have to take the highway. I can take the back roads in to Providence Place, and it just makes it so much easier to get out of. So, uh, funny little anecdote. If you are from here, then you may remember what happened in 2014 at Rhode Island Comic Con. So, the con was 3 years old at that point. Started in 2012. 2014, I saw on the news that they had oversold the event, and they only had one building used for it. It was the convention center only, and they started turning people away at the door. They even the VIPs, even the ones who bought tickets online, had a very hard time getting in and out of there. So 2015, they announced that they were going to use two buildings. They were going to use the Dunk, which is now called the Amp. I'm still calling it the Dunk, I don't care. And the Convention Center. So it got expanded out, and I remember going on a Sunday with George, his first Comic-Con experience. And we waited in line for like almost an hour and a half to get in general admission. They were still very new to it, and again, using a second building, they had trouble getting people in and out of the building. I remembered people talking about, oh, I got panels, I got photo ops to go to, how am I going to get in? They started sending organizers out to find those people that were going to panels or had photo ops, and they pulled them out of line and got them up there. So from that experience, I bought VIP tickets the year after so that we wouldn't have probably this problem, and we didn't. But going back to 2015, George was more interested in the vendors than he was the celebrities. And so we only got to meet a few celebrities there, but mostly wrestlers. So we have made it a tradition at Rhode Island Comic Con to, on Sundays, go strictly for the wrestlers. So I'm going to leave them out of this particular episodes because, we've met so many of them, and this is a movie podcast, and you want to hear about the celebrities, not so much the wrestlers. So Wrestler Day was Sunday, so we get to meet a lot of wrestlers that day, but we also met two people. And before I get into all this, you're going to hear this a lot about my interactions with celebrities. I have not had one bad experience with celebrities. Also, have a very funny story. I've got some funny stories about some of the interactions that I've had with them, but never have I ever had met a guest that I disliked. So I've heard of other people having bad experiences with celebrities, and I question why a celebrity who would act a certain way, want to come to these cons if they're not going to be more friendly. It's just the way it is. And again, I have not had one bad experience with any of the celebrities I've met along the way, and I've met a ton of them, and you're going to hear all about them. So let's start. I was a Walking Dead fan. I have been, still have been. We get to meet Scott Wilson, who played Herschel, and we got to meet John Brothel, who plays Shane in The Walking Dead. And so we get to interact with them, and they were really, really cool. And John is actually coming back this year to Rhode Island, and George would definitely like to meet him again. George was 8 or 9 at the time of the Comic-Con that year. So, no, 10 years ago, so he'd be 6 or 7. So I want to show him the picture, and probably be cool thing for him, because he's gotten into the Punisher, and John now is the Punisher in the MCU. So that'll be a cool experience for him to see him again and meet him again, and then we can show him the picture as well. So 2016, I got the VIP tickets, which is, if you've ever had VIP tickets, you're allowed to get in an hour before the general admission, and basically, scout out the place and, get into any line that you want right away. So I am a planner, mostly. So I had planned out a day where I was going to spend the day in the Dunk with the really popular celebrities. Stan Lee and Jeffrey Dean Morgan was in there. So, but Jeffrey was only there one day on that Saturday, and I'm not a big Friday fan, so I don't really go on Fridays, but on occasion I will. But Jeffrey Dean was only going to be there from 12 to 6. So I had mapped it out where I was going to stay in the Dunk. I was going to go to Stan Lee's line first, and then hop over to Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who was right next door. And George didn't go with me for some reason. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he had a little bit of a meltdown with something, and he didn't go. So I got to meet Stan Lee and got him to sign one of George's Spider-Man books. However, it took 3 hours for him to come down. They didn't tell us he had a photo op or a panel, so he, and again, this was his last appearance on the East Coast. He was an old man. He was in his 90s. And so, in hindsight, it was a good thing, because I don't know how you'd be able to keep a 7 or 8 year old in a line for 3 hours without him, whining and wanting to go. I mean, yes, it was it was a lot to wait for 3 hours just standing there, not knowing what was going on. So finally got through the line and jumped over to Jeffrey D. Morgan's line, and it took me almost an hour and a half to get through to him. Now, he was going to have a photo op at 1:30, and I was getting so close, and I'm like, I'm going to get cut off here. And the general admission line was out of control. Like, it was out of control, and I'm like, he's never going to be able to sign through all those people's autographs. There's no way. So it was right about 1:30, and I was literally like 5 people away from getting to meet him. So he stepped away, and I was like, okay, well, what's another 20 minutes or so? And basically, most of my day was already screwed up anyway. And so I waited, and he came back right away, and he said that the photo ops were behind, and so they'll call him when they're ready for him. So, and at the time, I didn't know what photo ops were, because the first year I went there, I didn't need a photo op to get pictures with Scott and John. So my biggest regret was not knowing that and not getting Stan Lee or Jeffrey Dean Morgan's picture. So the next time Jeffrey Dean Morgan comes to either Fan Expo or he comes to Rhode Island again, I'll definitely do a photo op with him there. So Jeffrey Dean came back, and right before he sat down to do more autographs, he said to the crowd that he was actually going to switch his flight, and he was going to stay for the whole day so that he could get everyone through his autograph line. And I thought that was so crazy, and so amazing that he would do that for his fans. Yeah, it was quite generous. I'm guessing he was there pretty much past of the 7 o'clock deadline for closing down the con on a Saturday. So got through the line. I had him sign an artwork that my ex-wife and I bought at Walker Stalker Con. And the reason why I'm not talking about Walker Stalker Con is for two reasons. One, it is no longer in existence, and two, if you remember the scandal that was going on with Walker Stalker and how they treated the the guests there, that's why I'm not mentioning it. But Walker Stalker Con was basically a lot of The Walking Dead and some horror thrown in there. So I've met so many of the Walking Dead casts. There's still some that I would like to meet who definitely need to come to either Boston or Rhode Island for that matter. But, and I got to meet Bruce Campbell, so that was pretty cool at Walker Stalker. But it was a photo of the Last Supper with Negan standing there as Jesus, and Rick and his gang there for their last meal. So I thought this was a pretty cool artwork. So I had him sign it, and he was like, "Did you do this?" And I'm like, "Nope, I don't have any artistic talent." So yeah, but please go ahead and sign it. You are the first one to actually sign this artwork. And then a friend of mine gave me an action figure for him to sign, and it had the comic book Negan hair, and he was like, "Man, I wish they would let me grow out my hair like the character in the comics." And I was like, "Yeah, why aren't they doing that?" And he was like, "Well, they just thought it would be cooler to have non-Jesus like hair, I guess." So I thought that was pretty funny. So really cool guy, and he did stay for that duration. So at that point, I needed to get water and some food, and said, "Well, most of my day is pretty much gone." So I had to make do, and then Sunday probably finish up after George and I, if he was ready, do Wrestler Day, and then some of the guests. So luckily the lines weren't too bad. I think most of the people were stuck in the dunk. So when I went upstairs, I got to meet Alexandra Breckenridge. She was also in The Walking Dead. She played one of Rick's love interest in one of the seasons, who bit the dust when her son, while they were trying to escape wearing the skin and blood of the walkers, made a sound, and unfortunately she was caught in the crossfire and went down with her son. Summer Gallo from Dollhouse and Firefly. That's more what she's known for. The movie Serenity, and she was pretty cool. What I also thought was really cool. I was a huge Never Ending Story fan, and the Empress that played, or the girl who played the Empress, Tammy Storenheim. Again, you know me in last names. But this was a rare Comic-Con appearance for her, and when I saw who it was, I was like, wow, I would really like to meet her. She really hasn't done much in movies lately. She kind of stopped acting after her childhood was pretty much over. But it was really cool to meet her. Also got to meet Shannon Elizabeth from American Pie. Everybody remembers Nadia from American Pie, the foreign exchange student. Um, and she was pretty awesome. So, Robin Lord Taylor from Gotham, he played the Penguin. Uh, he was uh, he was cool as well. I called him Mr. Nine Lives because he literally escaped almost dying so many times. Like, it was amazing that the Penguin survived all that time in Gotham to become what he ultimately became as we get into the older um, Batman. Sean Petrie, who played Alfred, was also there in the Gotham series. I actually talked to him more about Event Horizon, and if you have seen Event Horizon and you actually liked it, I need to know why. This was billed as the new, like, kind of an aliens feel type movie. You know, ship in the middle of nowhere, trying to find out what happened to the crew. And I got through that film and I'm like, whoever hyped this film up really missed the mark. And again, maybe it was just me, but I didn't care for the film. So every time it kind of comes on, I kind of laugh and be like, "Oh, look, Event Horizon's on!" Like, yay! Like, I don't know. It was just one of those weird movies that I couldn't get into. So that ended that day. So George and I went back on Sunday, and we scoped out the wrestlers, and he had a great time with the wrestlers. We also got to meet Michael Cutlass, who played Abraham, and I had met him. I had met him one other time, obviously at Walk a Stalker. So I wanted to, pretty much send my condolences to him because he was off the show, and we talked for a bit, and super cool guy. Um, I know he's coming back to Rhode Island this year, or was he going to Terracon? I don't remember. I have to look that up. But I know he's going to be at one of the cons coming up. It might actually be Terracon, Terrificon. So George had said that oh, maybe we should go see him again. I'm like, I mean, I would like to ask him what happened to Clarice. That show didn't last long. It was a show about Clarice's early days before she met Lecter, and I thought it was a pretty interesting show, but apparently it was not good enough to last an entire season and season 2 off the ground. And one other person I met was Gil Gerard from Buck Rogers. Now, my Friday nights, if I remember correctly, it was Friday nights, but my Friday nights were full. My dad and I would sit down and watch Battlestar Galactica, and then right after Buck Rogers. So it was really cool to meet, Gil, and kind of talk to him about, my dad and I used to love the show, and he was really, really sweet, and it was good to see him. So then we get to 2017, and I went to a small little con called Super Mega Fest. It was in Marlboro. So I don't know if it still exists. I looked it up, but it didn't have any listing this year, or either that or it already had happened and I completely missed it, or it doesn't exist anymore. So there were some wrestlers there, and I went by myself because there were 2 people that I really wanted to meet. Costas Mandylor from Saw movies. He was the cop that John had working for him, that when he died was going to oversee John's work and so on, because he couldn't trust Samantha to do it. And he was also on a show called Picket Fences. If you ever watched Picket Fences, it was such a good show. He and Lauren Holly, I loved this show. And there's a recommendation for anyone who has not seen Picket Fences. Go back and look at it. It was on FX. FX was a brand new station at the time, and had some talk shows, and it started doing its own content, which basically FX became more popular when Fox really was getting behind it with more programming and so on and so forth. So there was that. So 2017, so I met him, and then I got to meet one of my first crushes, and I shared a funny story, and I'm going to share it with you guys now. But a woman named Christy McNichol. She was on a show called Family, and she was in a movie called The End with Burt Reynolds. She was a teen, magazine cover woman. Or girl at that time. She was basically, everywhere. And this one magazine was like, oh, you want to send fan mail to Christy? And I was like, yeah, I would love to. I had such a crush on her. And so I remembered writing the letter, and I remembered sending it out. And so when I talked to Christy, I was like, yeah, I was a huge fan. She's, I want to say she's about 10 years older, I think, than me, or just about there. And I told her the story, and here's the funny part about this. I told her I wrote her a letter, and I got a letter back from you. And she was like, oh, really? And I said, well, it's not quite how it happened. So I got a letter back saying that, oh, thank you for being a fan of mine, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't from her. My mother thought that it would be funny to, send me a letter from Christy. I mean, I didn't know my mom's handwriting very well, unless she had somebody write it for me, for her. And I told her the story, and she, as everyone here probably is right now, laughing their ass off about it. And I wasn't traumatized by it, but it's one of those memories that will stick in my head forever. And I got to share that with Christy, and she had a blast with that. So again, that was a really small con. I wasn't there very long. Then Connecticut Con, which now has become Terrificon. But Connecticut Con was at Mohegan Sun, just like this one. I got to meet Ron Perlman. Yes, that's right, Hellboy himself. And this was about the time that Hellboy was being talked about being rebooted with David Harbour. And Ron was not a very big fan of that. And I can understand why. He was Hellboy, and I thought he did a tremendous job with it. So why would you reboot it and, change who Hellboy was? And obviously, I was right. I shouldn't have. As much as I love David Harbour, there was no way they should have rebooted Hellboy. It just didn't work. So we got to also meet Ryan Hurst. He was in Bates Motel, and a little later on he was in Walking Dead. And I know he's been in some other stuff that you would recognize. But I get to talk to Ryan about his demise in Bates Motel, and he was pretty satisfied with it, and I thought that was cool. Uh, you know, it's always cool to meet people and talk to them about other projects that they, have done or that people aren't talking about. And I'll get to that a little later with another celebrity. Got to meet Mark Singer. He was in another one of my favorite shows, miniseries called V, about aliens who used human faces to infiltrate our planets, and it was a pretty cool show. I mean, you look back at it now, it's a little cheesy, just kind of like Buck Rogers was a little cheesy, but that's what I grew up with in the 80s, And then Beastmaster, he was the original Beastmaster, so he was pretty cool. And then I got to meet Ray Park, who played Darth Maul in Phantom Menace, and also he played Toad in the X-Men movie, the original X-Men movie. So he was pretty cool, and got to talk to him about being in the Star Wars universe, and he had plenty of things to say about it, and really nice guy. And again, you're going to hear that a lot with a lot of nice guys. That year was the first year I went to Boston, and again, not knowing that Fan Expo or Boston Comic Con at the time wasn't taking photos at the tables. Now, again, the only time I didn't get one earlier previously in Rhode Island was Stan Lee and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, because I didn't know that certain celebrities did not do table selfies. At Boston Comic Con, they didn't do any of those. So I got to meet Elijah Dushku, who played Faith in the Buffy series. She was in also the new guy as well, and I think it was Bring It On as well. And she was really, really nice, and she is from here in Massachusetts, and got to talk to her, and became a Faith guy, even though I love Sarah Michelle Gellar, but definitely became a Faith guy. And then I get to meet Carl Urban. Yes, the new Johnny Cage. I got to talk to him about a show called Almost Human, which was on Fox, and for some reason got canceled. I thought it was a pretty cool show, and I got to talk to him about it. I said, what happened to the show? And he was like, well, some Fox bigwigs thought it wasn't good enough for their airways and got rid of it. And I was like, well, that's a bummer, because I was really looking forward to season 2. And he was like, yeah, so was I. So again, that was pretty cool. And if he ever comes back, I would love to get a picture with him, because again, I didn't know that. And then finally, Rhode Island Comic Con that year. It was a rather big con for me, because I met George Wendt from Cheers fame. I mean, who would forget Norm Peterson? Got to meet David Morrissey. He was also in The Walking Dead. He played the governor in The Walking Dead, and I had said, you were one of the most hated guys on the show, and he's like, yeah, I can see that. And I'm like, you're a really nice guy. So how was it playing him? And he loved it. He loved playing the bad guy, and I thought that was great. I also got to meet Shannon Elizabeth again, and the only reason why I went back to see her was because at the time she was with the World Poker Tour, and tried to get into one of her poker games. Obviously it didn't work, but got to meet Shannon again, and she was really, really nice about it. I got to meet the late Carl Weathers as well. We talked obviously Happy Gilmore, but we also talked about the Raiders and some of the other projects that he worked on. And, just a fascinating guy. Um, you know, it was great talking to him. I got a picture with him and Dolph Lundgren because they were there, part of a Rocky IV photo op. So I did do that. I didn't get to meet Dolph, unfortunately. There was too much going on that I had other celebrities I wanted to meet, so I didn't get to meet him. So met Sean Astin, I'm sorry, and at the time he was on Stranger Things, and he played Bob. And unfortunately, most people were, just kind of hyper focused on Bob's fate, unfortunately, in Stranger Things. And so when I got up there, I wanted to talk a little bit of Goonies, and also about Rudy. And again, he was really nice, and he was like, yeah, I don't know, most people here know me from Stranger Things, and nice to talk about something other than Stranger Things that I just died from. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I got a picture with him and Elijah Woods from the Lord of the Ring team up thing. So that was interesting. And again, I didn't get to meet Elijah. Again, too many people that I had to see. Then also got to meet the two young actors who were in Gotham. David Mazos. Again, you know me and my pronunciations. He played the young Bruce Wayne, who eventually became Batman. And then Cameron Bicondova. She played the young Catwoman, and I got to meet them. They were very, very cool. David was pretty young. I think he was 15 or 16, and he had his mother there, and she was pretty nice as well. And it was his kind of first Comic-Con, so he was really nervous, and I was his actual first guest that day. And he was like, just bear with me. And I'm like, it's okay, it's all right, and once he got started talking, he really relaxed and so on. So I got a picture, so I got an autograph with them, and then I did a team up photo op with them. And then day 2, I again did the wrestler thing with George, and we get to meet Ian McDermott, who played the Emperor in the Star Wars trilogy, and then also back at it with the prequels as well. So that was pretty cool. We didn't get a picture with him, unfortunately, but George got to talk to him about it, and he was a fascinating guy, and George really liked it. We got to meet Weird Al. Weird Al was so popular back in the 80s with his parodies, and over time he's gotten more and more famous and so on. And he did a movie called UHF, and I remember having him sign the copy of it. Probably should have had this out beforehand, but right there, his signature on it. And I remembered George, I remember showing this to George, and he was like, wow, this is such a crazy movie. And I'm like, that is Weird Al in a nutshell, and played some of his songs for him, and he was like, wow. So when you get to meet him, he kind of messed up things. He was like, oh, I know you're one of my biggest fans. And I was like, really, George? And he was like, oh, I'm sorry. And it was a funny little give and take there. But the real reason why we went on that Sunday was because Dave Bautista was there. And obviously Bautista was a former wrestler. And we get to meet him. He was fresh off of Guardians, so Drax the Destroyer, and George loved meeting him, and he was really cool, and he has had such a successful movie career, and obviously now he's so far away from wrestling, but he's still one of the guys that has done so well outside of the wrestling ring. Alright, so with that being said, this is about the halfway point of the show, and so again, there's so many more stories I could tell, but this episode is going to get way too long if I do, because we still have 2018, 2019, the events of 2020 and 21, and then obviously 22, 23, and 24, and then what is to come for this year's Comic-Cons, which again, I will be going to Terrificon and not Boston, because it's going to be a lot cheaper, and quite frankly, Boston is going to be a mess, and I'll say it in this episode, and I'll say it in the other episode, but 5 big names on one day, and only there for one day, and that's a recipe for just absolute chaos. Saturdays at Comic-Con, if you've ever been, are chaotic as it is, because it is tens of thousands of people going through the turnstiles, and it's a cluster at times, and now you've got 6 one-day people. That's just a recipe to say headache. With Rhode Island, I will say that if they do have single celebrities, they kind of make sure that 1 or 2 are on Saturday and 1 or 2 are on Sunday, so they don't have that cluster, and I think that would work well for Boston, but Fan Expo doesn't think so, and again, the prices for it are just insane. So I'm kind of glad to be going to Terrificon, and I will mention who I'm going to go see at Terrificon, because at the time here I have a list of people I want to see, and hopefully none of them back out, but if they do, it's okay. That's what happens. They have movie shoots or other commitments. So alright, with that being said, I want to thank everyone for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the pictures and the stories. I hope you enjoyed the Christy McNichol story, because I've got one that's a little bit more weirder than the next one, with one celebrity, and I'll just tease it as that. Also, I've got another story that probably will have George cringing, but it is a funny story, and the picture will definitely prove that. So I know he's going to hate it, but it is what it is. I'm his dad. So thanks all for tuning in, and I will see you all at the movies.
You like that, baby? Let him know where I came from, yeah!
See you next time. Bye.
Waiting for you. Goodbye. 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 Hasta la vista, baby.
That's all, folks.